Most of us probably won't get a chance to travel to Africa anytime soon, but, well, according to Rob Wiles, you don't have to go to the continent to enjoy its art. Just need to plan a visit to a new museum, one that's run by the Tennessee African Heritage Foundation.
You know, people came from the four corners of the earth to settle in Tennessee. Why, heck, they're still coming from all over the world to be here. And as you travel Tennessee, you'll find museums and markers and monuments that remember those places from which people came. Well, now, in the heart of Tennessee, in Nashville, there's a new museum dedicated to the art from the continent from which many Tennesseans can trace their roots.
It's displayed in a museum called Sankofa, named for an African bird, and collected over the years by James W. Peebles, who got his first love for African art not in Africa, but in his native Nashville.
I was at a store, a drugstore, on Gallatin Road in 1962. I remember it exactly. I just recently moved in that area. And I saw two pieces of African art. There were 3 or 4 pieces, but I got 2 pieces of African art. They were from Kenya. They were ancestral statues. They were modern. And they interested me. They struck me.
And so Dr. Peebles struck out on a decades-long quest to collect pieces, not in Nashville drugstores, but in Africa itself.
In the last 10 or 12 years, African art just came on me in abundance because I was affiliated with many African countries and many of the chieftains and many of the curators that I have on my staff now as advisors. And they went in and out of Africa, and they would go into the villages in the bush where the ordinary tourists cannot get, and then they would select and show me, and they would invite me in and give me the historical information about many pieces and several pieces, and until we were just able to produce enough pieces that are museum worthy.
And most of these recordings, or most of these artifacts and the different things that are on display came from West and Central Africa. From the countries here of the western Senegal all the way down to Ghana, all the way across to Ethiopia.
Now that the museum is open, Dr. Peebles can spend some time sharing these objects, interesting objects to be sure.
There's a two-head dog fetish. They're twins, they're a pair, because they are most powerful, they're two-headed. And I think they're from Nigeria. But they're very, very old, and they're when the African peoples begin to use nails instead of the blades to drive into the fetish. They began to use nails when the colonials came. And they are 2 powerful little figures, and they speak for themselves when you look at them. There's another piece, I recall correctly. It is the king's bed. It's made out of solid acacia wood, I believe it is, and it weighs about 110 kilos, and is solid wood, and the pillow is wood, and is used just in that form, in that state, without any mattress, as we know, or any covering whatsoever. But it is a royal bed, and only the king is somewhat blessed to have that type of comfort. And it's a very old piece. See, it sits down in the ground, and this anchors it in the ground so that it'll sit level. This is in the ground, and the coolness of the ground comes up through it. It's a granary. We would know it as a refrigerator or a storage bin, a silo or something of that nature. And it's made of terracotta. That is the type of clay that's found in the area of Mali, around that desert land in that area. And it's about 250 years old. It was unearthed about maybe 20 years ago, and it has dried out completely now. But it's used to store grain when there is a time of plenty. And then during the time of famine and drought, then they go and they pull the grain out, and then they feed the family in the community, and there are several in one community. I don't know if they still use these or not now, but this is a very interesting piece.
There are pieces here that meant a great deal to the people who created them.
There's the lady of the Sankofa, and then she's about 10.5 feet high. And the scarifications on her took at least 20 years to make. And I think she was completed, I'm told she was completed in 1928. And she's a fertility statue. And she stands in the village All the young girls and the ladies always they venerate her for the blessings of being very fertile to procreate, not just mainly for themselves, but for the community. And the Lord that stands right beside her as her guardian and protector, he's there ready to till the soil with a tool in his hand to provide for the family. Those are two very outstanding pieces.
And there are exhibits designed to make a point.
The reason this case stands out because it is because of these rich and blessed minerals that Africa has suffered. Many, I say, atrocities. Her people have been devastated and without. For the sake of the poaching of the animals and the mining of the minerals and the persecution of the people for these particular gems. And I don't have this case in here as to show off the gold and the silver, the diamonds or whatever, but as a remembrance to the Western world how Africa was raped for her precious minerals.
And many pieces that are particularly meaningful to Dr. Peebles.
There's an old Ghanaian story of Nia and the golden stool, how if you acquire this golden stool and if it has the blessings of the people and you sit upon it, it's like sitting upon a blessing that comes through you. So, you know, in many of the Western churches, we have a prayer clause, and there are different other things that we believe in, sometimes to touch the figures in the church or to do a genuflex or something like that before the altar. But the stool, the golden stool of Ghana, it serves that same purpose. And since I've had it here, it's quite comfortable.
Has it brought you good fortune?
Well, I get the museum. Yeah, says I hope it gives me enough fortune to keep it.
Hey, that should be no problem. With the enthusiasm of Dr. Peebles and the beauty of the pieces on display, the Sankofa Museum should be around for quite a while.